everybody. It's Laura Entertainment here. We are sitting here with director Bo Roberts. How are you doing today, Bo?
Hello, I am doing great. How about you?
Trying to stay warm.
Right.
Bipolar weather here in Ohio. So
Yep.
I'm just going to jump right in because I don't want to, take up too much of your holidays. So, what made you want to become a film director?
To me, it's been a pretty long journey to where I would say all the way back in sixth grade is how far I can chart it back, and it just took me a couple of decades to really make sense of it. But yeah, back in sixth grade, I would go into the library, and the books that I've naturally been drawn to are the ones that nobody reads. It's like you have encyclopedias and dictionaries, and they're old and just boring looking to a sixth grader. But then if you go even deeper into the recesses of the library, you have ones that have like dust on them and stuff like that. And I'm like, what is this stuff? So I began looking through, and it was a lot of books on like medicine and this and that. And the one that jumped out to me was connected with psychology. It was the DSM, which is essentially the encyclopedia for mental disorders, and just reading about why certain people do certain things that fascinated me as a sixth grader. And that, and then in the 90s, that's when you had this big first explosion of a bunch of these movies coming out about serial killers. You had like Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy and Henry, and those movies. And yeah, I just found it very interesting, like what makes those people, act and behave the way that they do. So fast forward some in life, and and I took a more proactive step with my interest in psychology, and went into law enforcement. Whenever I first entered it, I thought, serve and protect and uphold the law and stuff like that. But looking back on it, law enforcement, I worked inside the county jail, and that is ground zero of human emotion. Like everybody I'm meeting is having the worst day of their life. And then they put me on this advanced tactical team to where, if people come in being combative, suicide attempts, hostages, stuff like that, like I'd be somebody that would go in the room and deal with it. And yeah, so you have that kind of real world of being a young kid in school and working in law enforcement. But then there was a separation when I moved down to Florida. I wound up getting wrapped up in being a print model, and during that time, I started coming across like short film castings and a senior thesis film for some college and stuff like that. So I began auditioning and really enjoyed it because it took that interest in psychology and kind of flipped it on myself. Like, yeah, now I'm in this situation. How would I feel to be in that situation? So I found acting to be very introspective. And once I moved out to Los Angeles, I really started just kind of advancing my mindset once more to where it was, instead of me, how would I think and how would I feel about that? To me, directing and being a filmmaker, it's more present about how do I feel about this, to where like I view reality and just kind of the world in general and make sense of, okay, this is kind of where I fall on that side of the opinion. This is how I think and how I feel about that. So let's take what I'm feeling and turn that into a story, to where now I have, like a message I'm trying to put out. So like I can see the progression on how it went from what more tangible and just actually working and studying it, and was even majoring in psychology back in college. But how it went from that into acting, and then it's been a very introspective journey since I got into it.
Yeah, I just had that conversation, as a matter of fact, with somebody else, another person. because I did 4 years criminal justice, and my goal was to be a forensic profiler. And it was CSI and forensic psychology was my major. I did a double major when I went, and it was all writing. And I studied serial killers and rapists. Those were the two people that I'd love to put away. But when my daughter got sick, so it kind of took me down a different path, which I'm grateful for now, but it sucked because like all that schooling went to waste. And I mean, forensics and the psychology, I think that's really important, especially when you're working with
Mhm.
somebody.
Yeah.
Definitely. So what skills do you believe filmmakers should possess?
What skills? Well, if you're calling yourself a filmmaker, then the more appropriate title for what you're doing is you are a professional problem solver. Like you think this is what you're doing, and that's first off, it's not going to happen that way. Um, it may end up, exactly how you want it to be, but you're going to take a lot of, various routes to get there. So definitely being able to multitask and just accept that you literally go from one dumpster fire to the next to the next. Some days and some productions, that's just how it is. You have one issue after another. So not allowing yourself to definitely feel the pressure and react accordingly, but don't freak out and spaz out, because then your brain floods with adrenaline and you can't even think straight from that point. So
Yeah.
keeping a cool head, because the problems and the outright disasters are going to happen. So it's just, yeah, that would be a big thing. Is just acknowledge that you have to be a professional problem solver.
Yeah. So what is your creative process like when you're working? Whether it's writing, directing, acting.
Um, my, sorry, can you say that one more time?
Your creative
Uh,
process.
Gotcha. Yeah, my creative process is hyper spontaneous. So I've just, outline my story, or my next one, and I you know put out like mood boards and the storyboards, and I'm just and the major beat points, low details, and how every department has to be on the same page. But uh, so that's my 10th feature script idea that I'm now actually moved on to the first draft of the script. So out of 10 times going through it back to being spontaneous. It's I think since I've been hyper athletic my entire life, that the gym is just kind of my zen zone, and the epitome of zenning out is me warming up on the treadmill. Like I just hit go, bumped up to 7.5, uh, take off jogging, and I would do that for about an hour, and my mind just wanders. And there have been 4 out of 10 scripts that happened when I was on the treadmill, and all of a sudden I just have um, like this flash, and I just see the story. So it literally turns into a race against time for me, to where I have to stop the treadmill, collect my belongings, and go home. And as I'm walking home, I am writing notes on my phone just as fast as I can, just to, like, just this detail, but then this broad stroke. Just try to put as much of it down as possible. So for me, I'm not somebody that can be very consistent and type 3 pages, 5 days a week. For me, it's like I'll just have this burst, and I put down from like 10 to 20 pages. I put 20 pages down in about 2.5 hours one time. Like it was just, yeah. So back to the spontaneous. It all of a sudden I'm in the mood. I have this idea. I know what's going on, so I just have to do it.
I
Like
think
at
at
that
7.5 on
moment.
the treadmill, I probably would have flown off the treadmill. You said jogging. To me, I would probably be, I don't know, dialing 911 at that point, maybe. Okay, so what kind of films have you directed so far?
So my first full length feature is The Great Awakening, and that is a movie that um, to me I'm actually very proud of. Like the parameters that I had worked with to make it, I'm like the quality and stuff. I'm like cool, but the story is something that I'm very confident that I'm like, oh, that's a pretty creative thing. So um, throughout lockdown, like one day my wife was talking to somebody that she works with, and was like, "Oh, hey, Bo, how's lockdown? And what are you doing?" And my wife responded and said, "Oh, he's working on his next script." And at that time, I was just trying to, just get the broad strokes, like what type of story am I wanting to tell, and what's coming to me, and and that's when my wife and the person that she works with both agreed. Definitely don't make a movie about COVID because that's what every low budget horror movie is going to be for the next 5 years. So I
Yeah.
was like, got it. Okay, so how about this? I'm going to make a movie about COVID. So for me, I saw it as a challenge, but instead of it being very on the nose about getting COVID, lockdown as mass imprisonment of the human race, maybe the virus or the vaccine turns you into a zombie, like that stuff that's very COVID like related, and I'm like, that's to be expected to have tons of those movies coming out. So excuse me.
You're fine.
So for me, I started thinking about, well, how do I feel in this moment?
Mhm.
And it made me rewatch it. I actually watched it 3 times in 2020, but it's a documentary called Nightmares and Red, White, Blue. And it has like Wes Craven, uh, Guillermo del Toro, and like, these heavyweight horror movie people
Yeah.
on screen. And most of them talk about how, oh, I just made sense of what was happening around me and turned it into a movie. So it charts back to um, World War I to where now we're meeting uh, another human, but there's something that's different about them. They have different customs, language is different, so on and so forth. And um, but then society in the country was meeting a new kind of human when soldiers came back from the war and they're horribly disfigured and missing a limb and stuff like that. So that's when you had around that time period, you had a movie called Freaks come out, and it was like a bunch of carnival, sideshow and everything that's very much not PC today. But it was a movie that came out to really kind of signify that moment and that thought in time. So then fast forward World War II, every movie is about the atomic bomb scare. Go up to 60s, Woodstock, Summer of Love, a lot of drug experimentation. So horror movies, it's like the pot smoking hippie kidnaps daddy's little angel, right? A lot of horror movies were that way. And then you go up to the 70s, that's when the Summer of Love ended. Watergate happened, Vietnam. The country had a very raw and a very aggressive taste in its mouth. That's when you enter in ultra violent horror movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So it's like, nope, we're just gonna chop people up and show you all of it because that was like the emotion of that time period. What's next? Jump all the way up to 90s. That's when you have movies about, like, for us, we didn't just come from a great war. We don't know exactly who the bad guy is to point your finger at. That's when you have a lot of movies like you have a chance encounter with the killer. So for all you know, it could be somebody that you know. So movies like Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Joyride, all of those movies come out. So I took all of that information and was like, okay, what does 2020 mean for me? COVID is announced. People are talking about lockdown. The CIA released over 10,000 documents confirming interactions with UFOs. That wasn't even trending on social media when it came out. We had a very turbulent election year. the Black Lives Matter riots and stuff like that. And then murder hornets were on the news.
Never seen
Like,
any of those. Did you?
no, it was like a week or a week and a half, right? So for me, 2020, I'm like, the one word I would use to represent what 2020 means to me is uncertainty. I had no idea what was coming next. I'm like, it's the one haymaker after another. So that's what my story turned into. And so when you watch it, you have context of what it is and what the storyline is,
Yeah.
but you have no idea what's coming next. So the way that I created the story, and I was also the director of photography on it as well. So the way that I shot it, and then I even did essentially the first uh, assembly cut in post production, and the way that I cut it together, it it all has this narrative of pushing to where the viewer is just going to feel very uncertain and unsure about what's coming next, because that was my emotion of 2020. This movie is about 2020. So I want the viewer to feel the essence of 2020 when they watch it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there's actually a review came in, and it was very interesting. The guy gave me like two out of 5 stars or something like that. So it's a bit more on the disparaging side of review to read, but I loved it because I felt like I hit a complete bullseye with what he said. And he said, "You're watching it, but you don't really know what's going on, and you don't have a backstory of the characters and like how they're being developed, or you don't know where it's going." So, this disparaging review that I read, I was like, awesome. That's actually intentional and what I wanted to have happen, to where you're watching it and you want to have more information.
Yeah.
I wanted to know a lot more about 2020 than what was, you know, what we were being told. So I'm like, I definitely want more information, but I'm not going to get it. So I'm just like, I have no idea what's going on. Like every day I have, type of routine I try and maintain, and this and that, X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, it's hard to really forecast what type of situation it's going to be,
Yeah.
in 72 hours. So, that's why,
Critics.
yeah. So back to it. That's why when you watch the movie, you're like, yeah, I know the context of the scene and what's happening. And I can see, that type of, like, the phone calls that she has with her friend. You see the progression of that situation, but it's, yeah, so it's something I'm really proud of, because I went for, trying to put like an emotion or a feeling actually on screen, and I feel like I accomplished it.
Yeah. I mean, my opinion of critics, you know what I mean? I don't care what they say. I don't. Because in all reality, the only opinion that really matters is your own. I mean, besides the people that you're working with, there are critics out there that say stuff because they're mad. Then you've got haters, and then you've got people that just have nothing better to do. So whenever, people try to criticize me, I don't pay attention to it, because I'm going to do whatever I want, you know, and their opinion does not matter. It does not affect my life. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
that's just the way I feel about those critics. But I
Well,
mean, what's your favorite genre? Is it horror movies? Is that what you enjoy doing, or?
um, yes, that, and more specific to that, the subgenre is called cosmic horror, which is essentially from H.P. Lovecraft, and it's the study of what the unknowable. And so to me, back to 2020 being uncertain, like that's just the type of movies that it's like you really have to think and make sense of what's going on. It's not so much about boobs and blood and just chopping people up and jump scares. No, it's like the stuff that is highly symbolic, because that's my favorite detail of the horror movie genre, is how you can use the symbolism of what the story storyline is to represent something. So maybe it's not literally this monster, that's tormenting and haunting this person. Maybe that monster represents a drug addiction that the person is trying to run from.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of stuff to where uh, things don't have to be back to it on the nose. It's represent stuff, and it just doesn't seem like that happens as often in comedy movies and action movies and stuff like that. Action movies is like uh, Liam Neeson is a terrible father, and his daughter got kidnapped for the fifth time, so he's going to you killing my brother, now I'm coming to get revenge on you. And it seems like that's the format for a lot of action movies. So yeah, that's why I think I just naturally lean towards the horror genre more.
Same storylines. A lot of people, I mean, everybody's looking for new content, and because they're tired of the same old. And like there was this group that I was watching because I did Wrong Turn. I was in Wrong Turn the Foundation, and it was fun to be there on the set. It was really fun. But I was watching all these groups talk, oh well, it's going to be like the other one, and and then when it was released, their whole attitude changed because the
Mhm.
way that he spun that movie wasn't like it was back then. It was basically getting, because it's Wrong Turn the Foundation. So that right
Yeah.
there is going to tell you the foundation of the actual story and how far this goes back. And he completely redid it. And so it didn't come out like a reboot because people, they don't want to keep seeing the same thing.
Right.
We know what's going to happen. It's the same thing. Why go pay for it? But when they were watching it and everybody started making the comments, the more people started watching it. But I mean, I love horror movies too. I think they're a lot of fun to do. They are.
Yeah.
Imaginations running wild. So do
Yep.
you have any big let me see, how is it? Any big funny stories that's ever happened to you on set? Funny stories.
Funny stories.
Yeah, funny stories.
Yeah. I'm trying to think because I I always have moments on every production where at one point I'm laughing so hard that I'm crying, like tears. And to me, it's like, yeah, do what you love and you won't work a day in your life. So it's nice to have that happen on like every project I go on to, even the ones that are just so ungodly, inhumane. I can't even talk about it. But even on those, yeah, there's always something that happens and it's goofy and hits that note, and just to share laughter with a couple of people, it's pretty cool. But as far as nailing down one specific thing, it's yeah, I don't really have something jumping to mind at the moment.
No pranks were pulled on you.
No, no pranks. One funny story I would say that I've had in filmmaking in general, or just something that was cool. But back to law enforcement, um, um, a guy I worked with, we both agreed to go as Spartans for a Halloween party that the sheriff's office was putting on. So we showed up as Spartans, and then you fast forward X amount of years later, and then I actually am a Spartan in the sequel to the movie. So to actually be standing there, and then to to uh, to take the picture of me on screen and do kind of a side by side comparison of like, yeah, that was me back in 2009 ish, and going as a Spartan for Halloween, and here I am in what 2016, 17 or something. Actually walking the walk. So to me, that
Hey.
that was, yeah, it was kind of a funny little haha, I guess.
Okay, so do you have any advice for any aspiring filmmakers, any directors, any tips?
Yeah. um Sorry.
You're fine.
Yep. Um, yeah, see, it's that that cough from 2 weeks ago. It's still messing with me. So advice I would have for new and aspiring filmmakers is when you're doing something, um, that you're trying to say we're doing it properly. Um, the thing that has to be at the top of the list above this renting this slide or that camera, whatever, is you have to have proper sound on set. Like you can do not, uh, you know, skip over that for the sake of having enough money to rent a lens or something like that. No, you have to have a professional audio person on set. That has to be number one. And then after that, just shoot, just make sense of it. I shot 15 short films where on about half of them, I was the only crew member on set. Like, I did that for about seven to eight short films, and that was me. To where actually the very first one, it's Christmas themed, so you can check it out. It is a hostage rescue action short called Naughty Not Nice, and the elf on the shelf takes a Cabbage Patch Kid hostage. So then my buddies from law enforcement, yeah, I was like, hey, so my wife told me, before I come back to Los Angeles, I have to have 100% completed short, including post production. And I said, honey, I don't have the right stuff. She said, your photography camera shoots video. There you go. And I'm like, what about sound? Oh, it has a built-in speaker. That's good enough. And I'm like, I don't have lights or anything. She said, use a lamp, and just sunlight. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. And just everything, every reason to not do it, she shot it down and said, I really don't care. Um, you could keep talking about reasons to not do it, or you could start thinking about what you're going to do. So I just blasted off and shot it, and like had to do that perspective force shift to where like back here you would see my buddy
Yeah.
moving the animal, so we had to put it right next, so when you move the evil henchman stuffed animals, it it looked like they were actually proper size. And yeah, so it's called Naughty Not Nice.
You
And
took out the Cabbage Patch doll, man.
we well you'd have to watch how it goes down, but yeah, like half of it's not in focus, and it's whatever, but that was the thing that got me started, and it really helped me make sense of, well, I'm doing post-production on this one, I guess, because no nobody in their right mind would do post on this, especially not for free. So yeah, like it did that, and then the next one got a tiny bit better and a tiny bit better, and then I didn't jump all the way up to like a more pro grade camera, but I did all of a sudden have like a couple lights and this and that, and everything was just like make sense of it, and eventually you're going to get better.
Is that on YouTube?
It is, yeah,
Is it? Was your wife
yeah.
standing over you with the lamp?
No, it was when I flew back home to Indiana. So yeah, I'm like, well, I don't have lights and this and that, so we're gonna have to shoot this during daytime. Like it's
Yeah.
just use the sun, and that's the only thing. So yeah,
Indiana. Where are you from in Indiana?
more accurately, if you can pinpoint Louisville, Kentucky,
Yeah.
I'm like minutes from it, counting crossing the bridge.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd say maybe 5 minutes out.
Yeah, because I think there's oh my God, what highway is that? 50 or 60 that takes you to from Louisville to Indianapolis. I'm pretty sure I think it's like a
Yeah,
65 miles or something.
65.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's roughly an hour 45 to go from Louisville up to Indy.
Yeah, that's not too bad actually. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So do you have any big holiday plans? What's going on for you for the holidays? You and your family?
Just working on the quality control stuff for that movie. So it's sold with an international distribution company. So yeah, just take care of some paperwork with that, and just relax mainly. So yeah,
I know
not
that.
not too big on parties this year. So yeah, I'm just gonna put on some nice music, have some hot cider, and stare at a fireplace or something. So
Hey, there you go. There you go. That's
mhm.
a real good plan. Definitely. Okay, so before I let you go, I'm going to ask you the same thing that I normally ask people when I'm writing the articles. I haven't really asked anybody, I don't believe, in the interviews. Do you have a motto or a quote that you live your life by?
Hmm. Um, I I would say make it happen. That's one thing that my mom still brings up, but it was also something that my late grandfather uh, would repeat to me. And he said, now that you're working, as a model, you have to understand now you're the product. So you have to make sense of who's the main people that's going to hire you, or who's going to give you those couple jobs that's going to bring in the most money. Like you have to make sense of which direction you're going, and you have to change your product to where you're going to appeal to that person more. So he taught me how it's like, oh, it's not just try and be hot and jump around and whatever. Like he helped me change my mindset into viewing it more as a business type of thing. And um, so like on that note, I'm not 6'2", but the shirt would come off, people would freak out, and all of a sudden I'm paying rent, stuff like that. So, but with that being said, a very interesting and comical choice I made is to keep body hair, like chest, arms, all of it. So all of a sudden, I'm a all American, well built young guy that
Yeah.
has body hair. So people like Craftsman Tools and like those type of more like quote unquote manly men type of brands. They appreciated that look because nobody else had body hair. So I'm like that in a comical way that separated me from the pack because I identified what type of clients the all American look would appeal towards. But yeah, so
Yeah.
to yeah, so to jump back on track about make it happen, he kept telling me make it happen, and he would give me a little business coaching advice and stuff, and and then uh, and then he passed, and I was and then some time went by after that, and then that's when I decided I'm like, well, I have at that point I had 7 feature film scripts, and I'm like, but nobody's beating on my door, begging to uh, to have me direct one of them and bring it to life. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. And a very peculiar thing happened the day that I went and bought my new camera, because now I have like the big fancy red camera, and the quality is a major jump going from 1080p up to 6K. Um, but the day I went to pick the camera up, I was um, driving a car that he used to own, because very shortly before that my truck got crashed on the street and totaled out. So I just flew home and jumped in the car that he had, but then he's since passed away. So I was driving it, and apparently OnStar, they they record the calls that you have with them. And I was driving to the store like I'm about to throw down thousands and thousands of dollars, so I can just go off and make this thing happen. Back to the motto. And then I'm like, am I sure I'm going in the direction I want? Am I doing what I like? Are you? This is a serious step now. It's not just sharing a 6-pack with friends on the weekend.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, the OnStar, for whatever reason, came on, and it was a recorded phone call that my grandfather had with him, and he was like, "No, I'm driving. but apparently there's a turn I have to make, but it's not showing up on the GPS and it's not working. And the guy on OnStar kept trying to help him, and he said, "Hang on," and he pulled out a road map, and you can hear him make sense of the road map. And he said, "You know what? Um, like I can take it from here. I'm just gonna go my own way." And it was just interesting that, you know, like instead of waiting for someone to come help me out, I'm like, you know what? No, I'm just gonna go my own way, and I'm just gonna make it happen. So it was just interesting that, you know, that recorded phone call from my dad grandfather happened
Yeah.
as I'm going to the store to make it happen. Like it was, yeah.
It's a sign.
I'm like,
Yes.
all right, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm buying the camera. Stop thinking about it. You're doing it. So,
I think everybody should pretty much go their own way, honestly.
mhm.
I mean, it's no fun when people copy off of each other. I get it, you know, it's like an admiration thing, but I believe because that's why I do things the way I do them, especially with lore. If you do things differently, you get more. You know what I'm saying? You instead of copying the same thing that everybody's doing. I just think that's boring. You have no like
Mhm.
your imagination. You should have imagination when you're doing stuff. You know, that's
Yeah.
just what I believe.
Mhm.
Truly, truly. All right, you guys, we are gonna let Bo go and enjoy his holiday. We don't want to keep him, so we're gonna say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And everybody stay safe and be careful. Enjoy your holidays and your family time. And we're gonna thank you, Bo, for coming on. I appreciate that. I know you're
Thank you
really,
for
really
having me.
busy, so I know. And thank you guys for watching. Enjoy.
I remember that night when I first gave my heart to yours, I was scared and feeling insecure. You told me, my darling, even on your darkest days, you'd always reassure